Lorraine. I'm the Director of Curriculum and Communications here at Attollo. And in case you're unfamiliar with who we are and what we do here, we are a nonprofit college access and leadership program serving more than 400 high school juniors and seniors in Lancaster County. And it is my privilege today to introduce Dr. Daniel Wubah, who is the president of Millersville University. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Woo! So as always, we always love to start with this question. Can you tell us where you're from and what some of your hobbies were when you were growing up?
Okay. I was originally born in Ghana, and I did my undergraduate, in Ghana, University of Cape Coast. And I came to the US in 1984 as a graduate student at University of Akron. And I continued to do my PhD at University of Georgia. After that, I started my career at Towson State University. At that time, it's now called Towson University. It was then called Towson State University. Then I went from there to James Madison, to University of Florida, back to Virginia Tech, Washington and Lee, the Generals. And then from Washington and Lee, I came to Millersville in 2018. Yeah, hobby. Presently, my hobby is washing my cars. You might ask, why is that my hobby? In my daytime job and and my other job back in Africa, it's always using my brains, always making decisions, So I try to get a hobby that will allow me to relax and still get a product out of it. So for me, and my wife loves this because she doesn't have to pay for car wash. But, when it's warm outside, I pull the car out, I clean it, and I have a nice car sitting there. And that's what I love to do.
So before you were washing your car for fun, what were you doing as you were growing up?
I really didn't have a lot of free time growing up because I was one of three who were being groomed to become, the chief. My grandfather spent a lot of time with me. So the only time that I got to be, I would say, a kid outside, that was to play soccer with my cousins and my friends, because soccer is a big thing in Ghana.
So how did that early education, as you were preparing to, assume the role of king, how did that education shape the way that you now lead and carry yourself today?
Okay, throughout my life, I would say, because ultimately I knew I would end up in the role of, being a king, I was born into it. It's not something I chose. It means I had to prepare right from that point onwards. And so as a result of that, I basically couldn't do things that every other student, every other kid could do. We were very regimented in how my grandfather spent time with us, grooming us. Then when it comes to leadership professionally, I would say there is a linkage between the two. And my philosophy of leadership, just to share with you, is typically you think of the leader sitting at the top of the pyramid, and then you have people below you working with them. I flip that pyramid, the other way around. As, the leader, you should be at the bottom and carry the pyramid on your shoulders. And I happen to have two pyramids, one back in Ghana and one here. So I look at myself as, my leadership starts from the bottom, service. That's what my leadership is about.
And I really admire that. And I admire your ability to hold both of those at the exact same time, because both of those positions come with a lot of authority, but also a lot of visibility, and I imagine a lot of pressure. So I'm really curious, in both of those positions, how do you stay grounded, right, within that when people are deferring to you and always seeking you out for consult, regardless of which hat you're wearing?
Okay. Well, I can talk about two main things, relating to being able to wear both hats. First of all, that goes back to my story, how I ended up in this role, having both hats. When I came to this country in '84, I was going to get my graduate degree and go back to Ghana. That's it. Go back 1990 with a PhD, become a professor, and then go up the ladder. Okay. In 1989, I went to Ghana to visit, and the professors at my college said, given your skill set at that time, it wouldn't be helpful for me to come back because I did electron microscopy. And there was no electron microscope in Ghana at that time. So they told me that after graduation, I should get more experience here. That's what got me on this track. So I became an assistant professor at Towson, as I said. And as an assistant professor, my dream, my highest aspiration was to become an assistant department head. That was it. That's as far as I wanted to go as an academic, administrator. But as a person of faith, God has his plans for me. So I ended up, in this role. But with regards to both positions, just to, put it in context, I became, I ascended to the throne after my uncle passed in September 2017. And in March 2018, I became a president. So within 6 months, I went from being, a provost, at a college to wearing both hats. The question then becomes the grounding. The grounding is, what my grandfather helped me with when I was growing up. And then over here in my professional career, the key has been having a good team around you. As a leader, you by yourself can't do much. You are one person. And for me, philosophically, I believe if you have the right people around you. So, for example, to make it, compare the two scenarios. Over here at Millersville, I have my cabinet made up of the vice presidents. They are the ones I work with on a daily basis. They have responsibilities that I delegate to them to make sure the campus works. Back in Ghana, I have a council of elders. This council of elders are made up of 7 people who are the leaders in the various families in our clan. So these 7 people I'm in touch with on a regular basis. For example, I try as much as possible. Nowadays, I've gotten to the point where I don't have to talk to them 30 minutes a day. But my schedule is I wake up in the morning, normally by 4 o'clock, and I make a call to Ghana on a regular basis, on a daily basis, actually, because the time difference between Ghana and the US is 4 hours during, the fall, and 5, as we speak now, it's 5 hours. Okay. Now, what happens is I check in with them. They are the ones who are on the ground in Ghana. They know what is going on in their district. Okay, so the grounding comes into having that team who work with me, both here and in Ghana, and that is very, very critical.
Beautiful. So I'm happy to hear that you have an incredible team around you here and when you're not here. But I also want to go back a little bit and talk more about that journey on your academic side, because you started your career out as a microbiologist. So you were doing work, I have to check my notes for this because this is quite extensive, on anaerobic fungi, environmental bioremediation, and the microbiology of neotropical catfish. So that's what we were doing. Before all of this happened. Mm-hmm. How did those years in the lab shape the way that you think? And honestly, do you ever miss that part of your life before you kept moving?
Well, I wouldn't say I miss it, but every now and then, because of that proximity, working with students, in my role now, I try as much as possible to interact with students on campus. I walk around, I talk to students, and as a faculty member, having my own lab, the similarities or the preparation that gave to me to what I'm currently doing has to do with, I would say, 3 main things. The first one is as a scientist, I went to graduate school at that time, as I said, in electron microscopy. And my PhD advisor said, you know what? Everybody can do, that electron microscope work. I have a project here, where we are trying to understand how fiber degradation takes place in herbivores. And I think you should do that. And I said, but, I don't have any background in that area because it was in mycology, study of fungi. He said, you're going to spend some time learning the techniques and then you apply it to the fungi. So my role at that time was basically to learn those techniques, apply it to fungi. And in my PhD, during the 4 years, we discovered 6 new microorganisms, fungi that are obligately anaerobe, meaning they are killed by oxygen. Okay, because even when you think about yeast are facultative anaerobes. Okay, they can live with or without oxygen. But these fungi, upon exposure to oxygen, they die. That was for me, an opportunity to learn something new. So discovery as a microbiologist, and I still consider myself a microbiologist because I still get papers to review in microbiology, okay? Because that is my academic scholarship discipline. Now, when you look at that and you compare to what I'm currently doing, that experience in the lab, that involved discovery, doing something new, okay, patience, because whenever you're going to, as a scientist, no matter how well you are prepared, you have to have that quality of being patient if you want to really discover something new. And that is very, very important in my current role. Okay? But at the same time, too, you should be able to use your instinct to make decisions without having all the information. Okay? And as a scientist, I was taught, and I still believe, when you do a research project and the ending of the project doesn't lead to other questions, you have to question the project. That is leadership. The decision we make on a daily basis leads to other questions. And so the two, in one way or the other, the skills that I brought from the microbiology lab serves me well in my role as a leader.
There's so much there for me. And I think one thread that I really want to pull on here is this idea of discovery and of asking questions. I mean, like fundamentally, the scientific method at its core begins with a question, right? Exactly. It begins with observations and then asking a question. And throughout your career, you've done so many things that I think are just new. Like you've tried a lot of novel things in new spaces, some of them being the Centennial Scholars Program at James Madison, the Pioneering Program at Virginia Tech. I'm curious, what problem did you see in those moments that you were trying to solve, and how did those programs work to solve them?
Okay. Well, Tyree, that's a very good question because it brings another thread that I brought from the lab, the classroom, to my leadership role, and that is problem solving. As a leader, you problem solve in every decision you make. So in the case of the Centennial Scholars Program, the story behind it was this. I went to James Madison in 2000 as the Associate Dean for the College of Science and Mathematics. 2 years later, I was invited to be the dean of another university, but the search took place in the fall, so I was offered the job in October of 2003. I was getting ready July 1st, 2004 to leave JMU and go to this job. And the president of JMU heard about that. So he called me to his office and he said, well, Daniel, I heard you've got a job somewhere. Congratulations. But, between now and when you leave, I want you to work with me. And I said, gladly. I have it, 6 to 8 months. He said, well, the leadership, the board of visitors at JMU want us to diversify the campus because we didn't have enough diversity. We are talking of rural southwestern Virginia. Okay, so they want me to do that. And I told him that, Dr. Rose, thank you for having the confidence in me, but I am not a social scientist, and I don't think I can help diversify the campus. That's one thing as a leader, you should know yourself. Okay. What he told me was, he said, Daniel, it doesn't take being a social scientist to make a change or to be a leader. I believe this is a problem that as a leader, we can work on it to make it happen. I'll provide you the support. What happened was we set up a 64-member commission. Such that we address faculty, student, and staff, diversity issues. He gave us 56 days. It wasn't a 1-year project. 56 days it was around at the end of October, and he wanted us to give him the report, work on it, and give him something by, the first week of January the following year. So I worked on it. Fast forward, we gave him the report. I was getting ready. I said, I'm done. Come June 1st, I'm leaving, going to this deanship. We were sitting at a meeting, though actually it was, that was the year when they were celebrating the 50th anniversary, okay, of the Farmville, Brown versus Board, Farmville, exactly that year. So we had some of the students who were involved at JMU. And he just leaned over and he said, well, Daniel, I told you that, I wanted you to work with me for 6 months and then you would leave. I just want you to know that I lied. I want you to stay on my cabinet, as a permanent member and focus on this project because your report said there should be someone who would handle, diversity issues. I told him that I'm not interested in just diversity because if I wanted to go higher academically in administration, I needed to do something else. So he added enrollment management to my position. And that's how I became a special assistant for 4 years. But I kept my research. And I'm talking about Centennial because a similar thing happened with signeering. So we established the Centennial Scholars Program, and it was for students who at that time couldn't come to JMU because of costs. So what we did was we put a package together so that they got a full ride. We took their Pell Grant, institutional funds, and we gave them a full package. So we brought students to Millersville through that. So the problem we were solving was to diversify the campus. With signeering, a quick one about it is Virginia Tech is known for a lot of engineering, 13 colleges of engineering, top notch, okay? And then we have a strong, science program. But the only thing is they were not talking to each other. So you have a science student who never took engineering classes. You have an engineering student who took the basic science classes. So signeering was actually an innovative program funded by the Howard Hughes Institute that required that if you are a science student and you are in the signeering program, you have to do research in engineering. And if you're an engineering student and you are in the program, you have to do research in the sciences. Mm-hmm. And students who went through that program, we were fortunate that 85% of them went on to get PhDs.
Wow. Yes. That's a crazy stat. that many went on to get a PhD for the students. That is no small commitment that you are making at all to do a PhD. So that's really incredible. But I think what really stands out to me there is how on multiple occasions you said, maybe that's actually not meant to be my job, right? And you almost said no to a lot of these opportunities that you had where you ultimately ended up making really, really incredible, meaningful change. Are there lessons that you took away from that, things that you still carry with you from having done those things?
Absolutely. One of the lessons in that was, one, I had to know who I am. Okay. Because when these opportunities were presented, I didn't jump at them saying, I know what to do. Okay. As an educator myself, I believe in lifelong learning. And my grandfather used to tell me that the day you stop learning is the day you die. So far as you are alive, every day learn something. And he will often say, when I meet, he said, what did you learn today? He kept asking me till the day he died. And so he said, in a year, you learn 365 new things. And so knowing myself, in most cases, when I was presented with these opportunities, I would say, I'm not prepared for it. I don't have the background. But because in most cases, people see things in me that I didn't see in myself, I take it as an opportunity to then learn.
People trust you. I think you're a very easy person to trust.
Well, I have to work at it because, they want to see outcome. The bottom line is for each of these roles that I was given, the purpose, there was a purpose for it, and I had to, produce outcomes.
Right. So to that point about outcomes, thinking about your role right now as the president of Millersville, when you were brought into this position, and we were just talking about this back in 2018, what did you believe was your core responsibility? Like what were you meant to achieve in this role as president?
Okay. As a university president, the first thing is the institution has a mission. Every institution has a mission, and you are responsible as the president to make sure that that mission is accomplished. So coming to Millersville, I knew that Millersville has a clear mission to provide, outstanding education to students at an affordable price. Okay, and so coming in, I knew that in addition to handling the budget, handling the enrollment, in order to accomplish the mission of Millersville University, we have to create the right environment. So that to me was one of the first, areas that I focused on. And the environment often is linked to the culture of the institution. So let me share something about it with you. When I arrived at Millersville, Millersville had 5 core values: exploration, professionalism, public mission, integrity, and compassion. They were called EPIC values. During the interviews, I learned about those. But when I arrived, interestingly, not that many people knew about epic values. And it took a whole year to develop the epic values. So I latched onto it to use the epic values to structure the culture. So in addition to the budget, enrollment, the day-to-day operations, we really pushed hard to use epic values for decision making. But there's a story behind it that's very important, because if you look at our core values now, there's a second I in it. So in addition to integrity, we now have inclusion. And you might ask, how did inclusion get added to it? Originally, they assumed that inclusion was on the campus. In my first term, that's the fall of 2018, I was in Ghana doing my other duties, and I got a call from, of all people, at that time, Dr. DeSantis was my chief of staff, and he said, we have a problem on campus. What was the problem? Someone has gone to draw swastikas in the bathroom. They had written negative things in the bathroom. Okay. To me, I was 5,000 miles away, but that wasn't the place I wanted to be. So upon my return, I worked with the Council of Trustees, and we added inclusion to our core values. So it's now EPPIIC. And this is important because the success of any campus depends on the culture.
I literally could not agree more. When I think back to my time at WNO, as we talked about earlier, I think a lot about, what are we doing to create spaces where students can actually show up and feel like they can bring their full selves to whatever space that they're in, especially if maybe they don't see themselves reflected in the community around them. And so I'm thinking a lot, maybe from the perspective of our students right now listening to this, and maybe thinking about considering going to Millersville one day. If a student, a 17-year-old in Lancaster County, asked you, does someone like me belong at Millersville, right? What would you want them to know or to feel?
That's a very good question. Actually, that's something that I'm always working on. One, Millersville is the largest public university in this county. If you live in Lancaster and you are looking for opportunities to get higher education, I think even if you're aspiring to go out of town or go out of state, still apply to Millersville, because there is a kind of easy transition from high schools in this area to get into Millersville. Okay, we have a culture in Lancaster that people tend to overlook. It's so important. If you think about where we live here, how many places would you go that within 10 minutes you'll be in a big urban area, downtown Lancaster, and then you go 5 minutes south of Millersville, you'll be in this beautiful bucolic, corn farms. You don't find that everywhere. So our location itself is great, and the culture of this place too is one that I truly admire. So as a 17-year-old here, I would say definitely look at Millersville carefully. One, because our cost is very manageable. A quick comparison. At the moment, the full cost of 1 year's education at Millersville is just in the mid-20s, 25,000, includes everything, living on campus. Okay, go 5 miles from Millersville, and it's close to 80,000 at FNM. Okay, so as a student, think about when you graduate. Do you want to graduate with debt? And for students that we look for at Millersville, our goal is for them to graduate without debt. We want you to leave Millersville, get a job, be a contributing member of your community. We have programs too. Okay, the programs too are something that we are a comprehensive university, so we have programs. Teacher preparation is in our DNA. That's how Millersville was established. Okay, but we have programs in applied engineering. We have an example here. We have partnerships with companies who actually work on campus with us. In the STEM area, we have Lampier Labs on campus. We have Precision Cobotics. So while you're a student here, you can actually still be working at Millersville, getting experiences about whatever discipline you're interested in. Okay, we have programs in biology. How many of you know that Millersville produces more chemistry graduates who go to Ivy Leagues than any partial university? Our chemistry department at Millersville. Okay, these are things that I think students should try to get that information, and you realize that you have an amazing quality education in your backyard. You don't have to go far, and it will be reasonable. No graduate students teach at Millersville. All our faculty, members who teach. So that is also an opportunity for you to be, you will not be a number. Okay, you can go to a big school and be a number. I've been at those places. 52,000 at University of Florida, okay, 32,000 at Virginia Tech. But you decide, do you want to be at a place where you can walk to a faculty member's office? Okay, and if Tyree will tell you WNL or even FNM, to get that kind of experience, you have to pay a premium. We are providing that at Millersville at a very low cost. So for those of you here considering that's going to college, I know you're going to college, by the way. Okay, definitely, and there's something we can look into, in terms of if you are in this program, you apply to Millersville, we can find all sorts of ways to, make sure that, we'll provide you incentives to really look at Millersville as a place of choice.
I think you obviously make a great case for Millersville. And I think what you're saying is right in step with what we're constantly telling our students, right? About all of the factors that really go into making, the right decision for you. And what does it mean to think critically about the next step that you're going to take, the school that you're going to, the culture of the place that you're going to. I mean, Emily and I just last week were talking with our juniors throughout the week about, how do you make sure that the place that you're going to, that your values align with theirs, right? And I love that you brought up the EPIC values and how, that right there is a prime example of, to me personally, inclusion is one of my deepest held core values. So for me, that's a really, really encouraging thing to see that, that is a core value of my university. So I hope that you are all taking that with you as well. But I do want to ask a few, deeper questions about, I think, higher education in general and the current sort of landscape that we're sitting in. Because this is an incredible opportunity to talk with you about this. I'm really curious. We often think that universities are these sort of neutral spaces for dialogue, and that once you hit a college campus, you can talk about anything, and that the college itself is a vessel for neutrality. But I'm really curious if you think that true neutrality, even from a university's perspective, is possible or even desirable in the current moment that we're in?
Let me put it this way. The concept of a university being a neutral environment, I think, is not one that often plays out. And the reason is part of growing up or part of getting your undergraduate education is to put you in uncomfortable zones for you to learn at times. One of the best ways for us to learn as human beings is experience. And if you continue getting the same experience or you are in an environment where you are sheltered, I think you wouldn't get a holistic education. And if someone asks me, I'm going to address the question about the neutrality, but let me just share a piece with you. As a botanist, I started, my bachelor's is in botany. Okay. As a botanist, when someone asks me, what's the value of diversity? Why should we have a diverse campus? Or why should we have a diverse organization? This is my simplest explanation. If you have two farms, and we are in Lancaster, so we know corn farms. On one side, all the plants there came from one original parent. And then across from that farm, you have a farm where the plants came from multiple parents. If there should be a disease, a corn disease, which of the two farms will survive? Think about it. The farm that has, basically a monohybrid condition, most likely will be susceptible. It is the farm that has a diverse population that will survive. So there is strength in diversity. That's my botany explanation for why we need diversity. Okay, simple explanation. So then the neutrality piece, and I'll use a practical example. This occurred on campus yesterday. We have this family, the guy is called, I'm not going to mention his name, but there's this family who come to Millersville once or twice every spring. And this gentleman comes with his whole family, and they come to carry, and they have signs, And they basically stand there and they scream at our students using words that I would not use, vulgar names, calling them, words that no one would like to be, used around them. And when they come, yesterday at this time, I was responding to emails from students, okay, who were freshmen, who hadn't seen that before. When they come, their goal is to provoke our students, okay. Now, what we do is we prepare the students by saying, because of their freedom of speech, their First Amendment rights, we can't tell them that they can't do that. We are a public institution, but we give them a public space. They come to stand there and then they yell, okay? But we tell our students, walk away, because they came there to confront you, based on their own values and prejudices. That is not a neutral campus. I would say that is where you learn, because when you see that, you say, no, I would never like to do this, okay? And also, that is what in most cases we may face in the real world, okay? Because as a human being, you are not always going to be around people who look like you. You are not going to be around people who have the same values as you do, or people who come from the same origin. So being exposed to seeing this kind of behavior is to prepare you so that when you go to the real world, you'll be able to withstand those challenges. So it's not a matter of, trying to stay away. So yesterday, what happened was when these people came and shouted, we just sent a message to campus. We said, let them do what they want to do. It's their right, and they will go away. Okay. I got students asking me, what is the university doing about it? Okay, but I had to explain to them that it is their right to come and say what they want to do on my campus, so far as they are within the public space. Okay, and that is what life is all about. So it is situations like that where you feel you're uncomfortable. Use it as an opportunity to learn. And in college, there will be so many situations where you'll be uncomfortable, but it's an opportunity to grow.
Yeah, I am thinking actually a lot about my experience at WNL right now, and I distinctly remember every year around, I'm sure you remember.
The flags?
No,
Confederation
the
flag?
flags. So every year around Martin Luther King Jr. Day, right before it is Lee Jackson Day.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to get into all of that, but we had a very similar situation where, students would often be calling on the university to say, why aren't you doing more about these people that are coming through town with hate symbols and shouting profanity at students? But I think, and I appreciate what you're saying about the position ultimately that the university falls in. It's a very complicated and difficult position. I think it's very easy from a student's perspective to sometimes lose sight of the bigger picture when you are in it, feeling all the feelings. So I completely understand. And I think I see it more clearly now that I am on the other side of it than I did when I was personally in that as a student. I have just one more question for you before we open it up to the audience. So hopefully you've been thinking about your questions. So you mentioned, these are the skills and the tools that we are doing and using to prepare students for the real world. Like that is ultimately what is coming. If you could redesign higher education for today's students to truly, truly prepare them for the real world, is there anything that you would change? And kind of with that, if there's anything that that we're maybe keeping out of tradition rather than like because it's actually effective or helpful, I'd love to hear.
Okay. Well, higher education is often described like a huge steamboat. It doesn't change easily. And there are several reasons. One of them is that often you teach people based on how you were taught. Okay. And that is the challenge. So most of your professors in college, maybe in high school, they often teach based on how they were taught. That is what makes it difficult in most cases to have rapid changes in higher education compared to, let's say, the corporate world, where they can make a decision today and tomorrow everything changes. When I look at higher education at the moment, the landscape nationally, I would say this is what we are trying to do at Millersville, and it is a very good platform that I would like to see happen. We often describe our curriculum as based on having a foundational liberal arts, education, and then topping it off with a professional experience. Okay. And I think that model, it's not being used everywhere because, we often think about some universities being just liberal arts, colleges, some being, polytechnics, or some being just giving you professional skills. At the end of the day, you want to graduate and have a skill. But the liberal arts experience is so foundational because that's what you use for the rest of your life. Okay, critical thinking, being able to collaborate with other people, okay, being able to be creative, okay, those are all core liberal arts experiences. Okay, so you need that, and then whatever profession you find yourself in, you can apply it to. I would say that would be, in my view, the ideal curriculum that should be made available to undergrads across the nation. So I'm not saying that, I'm not saying it's either or. But if we craft curricula that provides that core foundational experience that are immersed of rooted in the liberal arts educational experience, and then if you want to be a physics major, if you want to be applied engineering, if you want to be a teacher, whatever you want to do, okay, will be built on that core liberal arts experience. That's what I think. I don't know if everybody is doing it, but that's how I would like to design curriculum.
Beautiful. I mean, part of my role here is curriculum development. So I am personally taking notes on what you're saying here. So with that, I would like to open it up to our audience if anyone has questions.
I got two questions. The first one, is it true or is it true that Congo is better than Ghana in soccer?
That I would defer. Well, actually, let me put it this way. Growing up in Ghana, soccer is what everybody plays. And if you look at the number of times Congo has won the African Cup of Nations versus Ghana, it will tell you the story when they started. So
I'll look that up. I don't know.
look that up. Okay.
But you mentioned why it's important for you, like we need to have diversity, and then I think it is actually growing in Lancaster. I want to know, what role do you see Millersville playing in helping, in supporting immigrants and refugees before and after college?
Well, before college, being part of this program is definitely something that, I believe we can continue this partnership to encourage, students to come to Millersville. One of the reasons why my wife and I, our transition to Lancaster was very smooth is the fact that it's cosmopolitan. How many towns the size of Lancaster would you find more than 40 ethnic restaurants? Okay, that is a character of this, county and this town, this city, that makes it special. Millersville's role, okay, and I can share with you, when you go to our campus now, I can tell you students who came, from Nepal, they came to Millersville, after they've gone through 2 years of, McCaskey, came to Millersville, got their undergraduate degrees, and they've stayed on getting their master's, going on to get their doctorate in social work at Millersville. Okay, they didn't have to leave Lancaster, and they're going to get a DSW. Okay, that is something that we should be more intentional about. If we identify students who we believe would like to live in this community, which is, I would say, unless you've been somewhere, it's very easy to overlook what the blessings you have around you. But Lancaster is a great place to live. Having lived at 6 other places before we came here, Lancaster is a great place to live. So in terms of preparing them, I think that's important. Now, before getting to Millersville, we've started programs with McCaskey and with Penn Manor, in specialized areas where we call it early college career programs. So, for example, at McCaskey, we have a program where if you're interested in being a teacher, okay, you can be part of that group as a junior. And you start taking classes. We encourage you to take some dual, enrollment classes. So by the time you come to Millersville, you can have several credits. It would lower your cost of attending Millersville. And we have the same thing with Penn Manor in business. So before you come to Millersville, and these programs are available to the immigrant population. It's available to everyone. But I will encourage our immigrant population who are interested in staying locally that you can get an amazing education at Millersville at a very affordable cost, and so they should look at us.
Thank you. I appreciate you for being here. It's really cool to hear your story because it's my first time, so I've gained a lot of wisdom. But you talked a lot about conflict resolution and kind of dealing with adversity on your campus. How would you encourage young students who are still in high school, even maybe in middle school? How can they start to build up the ability to face conflicts in life and kind of prepare themselves for the real world now?
That question actually is one that I would say should be all students, right from when you're a kid, you should be given an opportunity to acquire skills to handle conflicts. The unfortunate thing about developing the skills to handle conflicts is one that you have to go through it to get the experience. Okay, so I would say to help students to develop these characteristics, Attollo program is a very good example in the sense that by going through this program, you get to interact with different people, you get to learn, meet different people, okay? You get to learn skills that you wouldn't find if you were not in the program, okay? But let's take a look at a student, a kid who is in elementary school now, okay? For most of those kids, what conflicts do they get through? Okay. And we are not in the position where we can say we should put conflict resolution in the curriculum in elementary school. But I believe that if we have teachers, or even it's a partnership between the schools and home. Okay. If you find out that your student or your kid or daughter and son is having problems relating to conflict resolution, you as a parent, you need to work with, the school, the teachers, okay, to let them know that it is part of life. Anyone who tells you that there's no conflict in life is lying to you. Life is this way, okay? So it is up to us, the grown-ups, to let them know that it is part of life, but then you use that as a window to prepare them to be able to handle the conflicts. Okay? That's one way we can help them. The other way too that I believe we can handle conflicts, it's never a good thing to create a conflicting situation for a student or for a kid just to be able to train them, to know how to resolve conflicts. But there are opportunities when kids themselves, okay, can be conflicted in one way or the other in their decision making. Okay, that's where we get a chance to step in to help them. What metrics do they use to make decisions? Okay, and with conflict resolution, it's similar to Victor and I often talk about on our campus at the moment. We always talk about, why do you have to have your money in the bank, savings? You don't need savings when everything is going well. Okay, you need your savings during the crisis when you don't have money. So what we need to do is to prepare the kids to have the skills, the tools to be able to resolve the conflicts before they occur. I think it has to be done intentionally, but it will start with a premise of letting the kids understand, the students understand that because conflict is part of our everyday life, you have to have the tools to be able to address them. Okay. If you tell your son or daughter that conflicts would never occur in your life, I don't think you are helping your kid. But let them know that it will occur, and before it occurs, help them to prepare for it.
Thank you.
I think we have time for just one more question.
What do your law programs look like in Millersville? Your law program?
Law, well, we don't have a law school. We have a pre-law program. And I will tell you that we have practical examples of students who have gone through Millersville's pre-law program and are doing very well locally and even outside Lancaster. Our pre-law program is in the political science, and it's actually political science and pre-law. And we have a faculty member called Dr. Richard Glenn. Okay. Recently, we put together a whole issue of our, alumni magazine. And on the front cover, we showed Millersville alums who are legal leaders in this community. We have 2 prosecutors on the cover. We have, one who is a defendant, that's a defendant lawyer. It's amazing what students who have come to Millersville have gone to do if they came in saying, I'm going to get my pre-law experience. Last one I'll share with you to let you know the outcomes once again. When you go to Kentucky, the youngest district attorney that they ever had in Kentucky was a Millersville alum. How do I know that? Because this person actually came to visit in my first year, and Dr. Richard Glenn brought her to my office, said she graduated from Millersville, she went to law school, and she was the youngest district attorney in Kentucky, not even in Pennsylvania. So if you're interested in going to law school, I think you have an opportunity to actually get a very good grounding at an affordable cost at Millersville. But let me add this to it. Similar to medical school, you don't have to go through pre-law to go to law school. You know that? Okay. What I encourage students to do is this. At your undergraduate level, even if you want to be a lawyer, pick a major that you enjoy, that you know you will do well in, okay, and prepare yourself, take the necessary classes, because I was told, I haven't confirmed this, that on the LSAT, those who get the highest scores are physics students. Think about it. Not pre-law students, physics students, because of the logic, if I don't know. But so, since if you want to be a lawyer and you want to come to Millersville, the pre-law program is there. But think about the major that you really enjoy and do well in, being aware that this is what I need to prepare to do well on the LSAT.
So being mindful of time.
I think Sebastian has a question.
Ask a question, Seb.
I'm okay.
Pass that mic back to him. As long as you've got time, we've got time.
I'm okay. I'm here for you.
I was just wondering, being the president of Millersville, you probably go to a lot of events, definitely see a lot of them. So I was wondering, is there either a tradition or an event like graduation or homecoming that is your personal favorite? And is there one that makes you truly see, or you would want other people to see why Millersville is so special?
Sebastian, that's a very easy question for me to answer. And why do I say that? For me, the best day of my life, we all say the best day for the year. I get to do that twice a year. Okay, commencement. When we are on the stage and I look at our students who are graduating and the stories behind their lives. Okay, for me, it always culminates in saying, this is why I am in higher education. Okay, bar none. To me, that is a special day whenever we have students graduating, leaving Millersville. And I often tell them that as you cross the stage, you should have somewhere you're going to. Either you have a job, or you're going to a professional program somewhere. But don't leave Millersville without having a plan. So commencement is great. It's one of my best days, and I get it twice a year.
Cool. So right before we wrap up, we have a phrase here at Attollo that we use a lot, where we say, you can't be what you can't see. And that's our way of essentially saying representation matters, right? And exposure to opportunity, to places, to people can make all the difference for us. So I'm curious from your perspective as a Black university president, and also learned this fact, the first Ghanaian-born president of an American university is sitting right here in front of us. I mean, come on. When we talk about you can't be what you can't see, this is what I mean. I'm curious, how do you think about the responsibility that comes with that, with being that role model for people that they're looking to say, I can be something else?
Mhm. Well, first of all, my response to that is it comes with a lot of responsibility. Okay? And, in the sense that on our campus, I can't walk by myself without somebody knowing who I am. I can't be anonymous on the campus. Okay, so, I'm always mindful of what's going on around me. But when we take just being the president away, okay, quick story, I'll share this with you in this room and keep it here. If I were in Ghana, okay, I would not be sitting here talking to you. Most likely, I'll have my linguist standing next to me. That's the person you talk to, and then they talk to me. If I'm in Ghana, I can't get up from my house, go and sit in my car and drive away. Okay. From the day I arrive in Ghana, I have security with me right from the airport. And they stay with me till they put me back in the plane to come here. It ends up being like I'm in a fishbowl. Okay. And it is during those times that, I count my blessings for having an opportunity to be in Lancaster where I can walk around, I can wash my car. I don't do that in Ghana. I'll be in trouble. Okay. But the wearing those two hats, let me end by saying, I look at myself as a work in progress because I don't have any manual that is telling me, as someone who is a president of a university and a king in Ghana, this is what you do, or this is how you handle this. Okay, everything that I'm doing in most cases is based on, I'm learning as I go along. As the situations arise, I have to come up with, ways to tackle them. Because there have been cases where currently from 4 to 6 in the morning, I talk to people in Ghana every day. During the weekday, 6 o'clock, I shut that off. I'm a university president all the way through the rest of the day. Weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I consult with them in Ghana. Okay. And the ability to turn the switch on and off and be mindful that I am in my president's role versus my role in Ghana is one that is a work in progress, because at times, one of my skill sets bleeds into the other, but it helps too. Okay. And it creates what at times I'll say is the dynamic tension. Why do I say that? And this bonus sharing with you. At Millersville, as a president, I'm very collaborative. I listen to my cabinet. I do the same thing in Ghana. But at Millersville, I can come up with a decision and then the cabinet or even the faculty will say, no, we are not interested in this. Okay, they can push back. Okay. In Ghana, what I say is the final word. You can't say no to it. Okay. So how do I figure out, whether the decision I'm making here is one that will lead to, no, we are pushing back, or in Ghana where everybody is saying, yeah, Nana said this and that's it. Okay. That dynamic tension, but I'm a work in progress, to let you know. I'm learning. I don't have anyone in front of me who did this, who would share their experience with me. So that would be my answer to the question about wearing the two hats. What keeps me grounded? Going back, Sankofa. You know of Sankofa, right?
Yes.
How many of you know Sankofa?
Yes.
Okay. Sankofa is basically going back. If you leave something and you go back for it, that's acceptable. Okay. So going back to being grounded, having those two communities on my shoulder. I don't sit at the top of two pyramids. I can't do that. But I have two shoulders. So I have Millersville here, and I have, my Ghanaian role here. And that's what I try to do.
Well, that's a beautiful place, in my opinion, to end. So I want to say thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate your insights around leadership, around how do you balance these two competing responsibilities, competing interests, and also just in general, how do you make the right decision for yourself and for the communities around you that need you and depend on you. So I want to thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Wubah.
Thank you for the invitation.